person that said 90% of the people that they talked with felt like they were not enough. Have you ever felt that way? Well, I have. Really, probably more often than I'd like to admit. I felt like I'm not enough. Well, as spiritual livers, we know better, right? I mean, we know that we're divine, that we are that divinity that is perfect and infinite. I mean, how can the infinite be not enough, right? Well, so then why don't we feel like we're enough? Well, we can look at it from several different angles. If we were an anthropologist, we might take a look at the history of the human beings on the planet and try to see if we might gain something that way. Millie O'Brien did this, and she said our human minds have evolved over the last 150 to 200,000 years. But most of the time, the human mind was evolving. It was in that hunter-gatherer phase. And that even though today we're not hunter-gatherers, that our mind is still mostly operating in that way. Now, the mind, if you're a hunter-gatherer, its first and foremost job is to keep you alive. It operates like a survival machine. And fitting in with a group was essential to survival. You survived in groups, but if you were on your own, you weren't going to survive. A warring tribe would get you, or a predator, or maybe some kind of injury. So our survival depended on having the approval of the rest of the tribe. Well, because of this, our mind has been wired to be constantly assessing. Am I fitting in? Am I doing anything that could get me rejected? Am I contributing enough? Am I special? Am I enough? Am I enough? Now, in today's society, we don't have those same fears about having to fit in with a group. Yet, at the same time, our brain thinks it does. In the words of Will Smith, we spend money that we don't have on things we don't need to impress people who don't care. Fitting in, getting others' approval. That's one reason we might feel like we're not enough. Now, a psychologist might say, well, you feel like you're not enough because you have low self esteem. Well, esteem comes from what we think and feel about ourselves, and a lot of times how we judge that is based on a comparison. We compare ourselves with others. Now, Gurpreet Kaur says low self-esteem is an enormous problem in our society. It causes depression, self-destructive ideas and behaviors, and it stems from messages and influences in our childhood. Wow, it can come from a variety of roots, either perfectionism or critical parents, traumas, abuse, lack of opportunities, oppression. The message often is that you do not measure up to other people's standards or some external yardstick. Now, we know about standards. I mean, there are standards out there that kind of help us see how we're doing. Um, However, our culture has fed us these unrealistic standards for judging ourselves against others. All you have to do is look at, one of those commercials where the women are all beautiful and the men are all, buffed up, to see that these standards that we're looking at to compare ourselves make us almost always fall short. It adds to our low self-esteem because anytime you're measuring yourself against an ideal, well, that ideal isn't like the real thing. It's just an ideal. There's going to be a gap. And we're going to fall into that with low self-esteem. It starts at a young age. I remember I was a very young girl when I started thinking, oh, my figure didn't look exactly like, the Barbie doll figure. This is all about comparison. Now, another way we might look and see whether we feel enough or not and why not would be from a social worker perspective. And they might say it comes from your childhood environment. Hillary Jacobs Hindle says we're not born feeling inadequate. Life experiences and emotions create that sense within us. She says, for example, when we're little, we felt afraid or anxious. Our mind told us something was wrong with us, not our environment. See, the child's mind is not yet rational. It's not making sense yet of the larger picture things, of other aspects that parents and other adults have to deal with, the things that the child knows nothing about. And so what happens with us as children is we think, okay, something's not right. It's my fault. It's because of me. Something I'm doing is bad. And a lot of times we carry that message with us way into adulthood when it stems from just a lack of maturity of being able to know any different. But we internalize it. Now these places where we might get our low self-esteem, the caveman mentality of you've got to survive and get approval, or the low self-esteem where from comparison or just picking up the wrong message from our environment, wherever it comes from, those things affect our protective personality. Now the protective personality is, some people call it the ego, but it is that part of us that thinks it is us. It thinks it's the one that we are. And in many fields, the remedies for these mistaken beliefs of the protected personality are geared toward changing how this protected personality sees things or views things. And some of these remedies are actually quite good. Um, like these from Gurpreet Kaur. She says, one, you can't criticize yourself into a better person. Wow. I heard that and I thought, you go, girl. That is absolutely right. Every time I make a little mistake, if my mind goes, oh, Jean, you never get that right. Well, that is just not helpful. I can't by criticizing myself over what I've done, it's not helping me to be a better person. It's not helpful, and most of the time it's not even true. Ernest Holmes tends to agree with her on this. He said, self-condemnation and personal distrust is morbid and detrimental to our welfare and might be classed as one of our worst mental diseases. Self-condemnation is always destructive and should never be indulged in by anyone. It is always a mistake. If we've erred, it is because we've been ignorant of our true nature and because the experience was necessary to bring us to ourselves. It's always a mistake to self-condemn. So, stopping doing that will help us feel like we're more than enough. Now, another practice is to catch yourself when you're thinking things like you're not enough and just remind yourself, okay, I might be thinking that because of past experiences, but those are not valid in the present moment. Those beliefs aren't valid, and then replace them with something positive. So instead of saying, oh, you never do that right, say, you have this little quirk. It's kind of cute about yourself, but, next time it's a different time. Something positive instead of that negative self-critical voice. There are also practices like self-love, self-compassion, empathy, positive self-talk, and expressing your emotions in a healthy way. Those can lead to more of a feeling of you're enough. Now, David Andrew Wiebe says he has a unique way. He says, ask yourself, he says, just imagine for a moment, if there was no one else living on this planet, and you had no one to compare yourself to, how would you feel? No one to compare yourself to. You might be lonely, you might be sad, but there would be no reason to feel a lack of self confidence. After all, you would be unique. There would be no one else like you. You'd feel free. And then he says, oh, but hold on a minute. You are unique. There is no one else like you. Good way to look at it. So these things are things that we can use to help that protective personality take a different view, to see that it's enough. And then there's the spiritual aspect of why we might feel like we're not enough. Now, you might say, well, that would be odd because as a spirit, we're whole, we're perfect, we're complete. And before we come to this planet, we know that. But it is really sort of by design that when we come here, we sort of splat. And our mind goes one way, the body goes another way, the breath or the spirit goes another way. And so a lot of our life is spent trying to pull all these pieces together again. The mind really gets started really early because it's trying to learn things. It soaks up things, like how to be here, what things mean, what they look like, what things are going to affect others, how it fits into the world. And before you know it, the mind thinks it's in charge. And it thinks its job is to pull you all together. But the longer it goes on, the more it forgets about the other parts of you, and the more that it just thinks that it is you, that you are the mind. And of course, it develops that protective personality that we're talking about, that we've talked about, that's based in fear and based in survival. Well, with this as a foundation, it's bound to see life as distorted. It's not seeing the truth. It doesn't know the truth that you are presence. You are God expressing. Dr. Sue Morter says, the one who thinks I'm not God is right, because it's the protective personality that would say that. And the one who thinks I'm not enough is right. You might say, whoa, I thought we were enough. Well, the one who thinks I'm not enough is right, because the only one saying that is the false self. And it is not enough. The false self is not enough. It's part of what is enough, and it just needs to merge back into that which is whole and complete. See, we're supposed to get to where we are 100% identified as God in this body, in this lifetime. See, it's only the protective personality that thinks it's not enough. Our soul knows better. And as long as we're identifying as the protective personality, we are not enough, and we will never be enough. We have to, in order to feel whole and complete, we have to identify as the presence, as that spiritual essence of us that is our true nature. So I have some tools with me this morning, and of course I have an acronym, and the acronym is CAR. So you jump in a car to go from one place to the other. So we're going to get in our car to go from I'm not enough to enough. CAR. For the C words, I adopted them from Hilary Jacobs Hindle. She had a saying, compare and despair, with an exclamation point. I loved that. I thought, of course, anytime I'm comparing myself to something else, I'm headed towards despair. Compare and despair. That comparison, it only hurts. It only hurts us. So let's stop doing it. Just stop comparing. Stop it. Comparison is the root of all unhappiness. And so just don't do it. Don't do it. There will always be someone who, looks better, who speaks better, who's better off, who's got it together better, who does things better than you. And so why make yourself feel bad? And then on the other hand, if you're looking at someone and thinking, well, pretty good next to them, I think I'm like better than that. Um, See, that's still putting us in the protective personality. It's not putting us in our wholeness. So that still puts us in an area where we feel like our value is coming from outside of us, and it never will. Richie Norton said, freedom on the inside comes when validation from the outside doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. So if you find yourself comparing, there's a quick little exercise that I've learned from the energy codes. Um, and this is good when you're comparing, but also if your mind is kind of swirling, maybe you've got some options that, or maybe you've got something that happened that you're going over and over in your mind about. It's called drop in and drop through. And basically, you've got all this mental stuff going on, this comparison, let's say for now. And so you can inhale, that'll help it just bring it all into the center of your brain and just drop it through your body all the way through the ground. Drop it through and like flush it out. It's amazing how you can actually feel your brain kind of empty of all that stuff and give it space so it can know its true beingness. So compare and despair. Instead, when that happens, we're going to drop in and drop through and allow ourselves to think of the next letter, which is A. Acknowledge that you are divine, that you are divine, that your source expressing as only you can. You're not here to measure up. You're not here to be good, so to make it to some particular location in the sky after you die. No, you're here to experience all that life has to offer. We're here to experience the fullness of life, the ups and the downs, the happinesses and the sadnesses, to bring the consciousness of your divinity to all of it, to all of it, and to allow all of it to experience itself in this dimension. We're here to bring the high frequency of the divine into this density of the human experience. And to know that if we're taking things personally, that we're stuck in the protective personality. That's not divinity talking. If we have a charge about anything, that's the protective personality. Divinity doesn't have a charge about anything, about nothing. It loves. It just loves all things. And it sees how all things benefit all things. Charles Fillmore said, when we awaken to the reality of our being, the light begins to break upon us from within, and we know the truth. When this quickening occurs, we no longer accept the standards or the teachings of the worldly wise. We know with an inner intuition, and we judge people and events from a new viewpoint. A new viewpoint. The viewpoint from this new awareness, the awakening to the reality of our being. Well, we know we are the divine. We are the divine. We're not human beings trying to get spiritual. I mean, we've been trained like that and we've thought that so long, but that's upside down. It's not even true. We're spiritual beings having a spiritual experience in the human body. But it's all a spiritual experience. And all of it is us as spirit expressing all of it. There's nothing in spirit, in this unified field of which we're just a part. There's nothing to compare yourself against. There's nothing to judge yourself against. It's all grace, goodness, love, presence. So, A, acknowledge that you are the divine. And the R in CAR stands for reconnect body, mind, and spirit, or body, mind, and breath. This is about bringing us together from the splat, from the original splat, about bringing us all together to where we're integrated. And all three need to be reconnected in order for us to feel whole because they're all parts of us. Now, the mind is really, it's run the show for too long, but we don't want to eliminate the mind. We just want it to do the job that it came to do, that it was designed to do, which is really focus on the spirit. And you might say, well, Gene, I don't know where the spirit is. I mean, it's kind of invisible. Yes. And the good news is that even ancients from thousands of years ago talked about the breath as a spirit. The breath is spirit. When the breath moves through the body, it is spirit moving. I mean, when the body stops breathing, it's no longer full of life. We are no longer there. So spirit on the move is breath in the body. And we can enhance that attention of the mind by letting the mind follow the breath in the body. Now, you might say, well, but I thought the body was like, we're supposed to like ignore the body when we're trying to be spiritual. Well, no, because the body is the first place where we feel the presence giving us an indication of something. The gut feeling that we have, or maybe sometime you've been standing in front of listening to somebody, and all of a sudden you get this. It's happened to me a while back. It's like all of a sudden a truth dawned on me from within. This person is not telling the truth. It is that feeling that we get within our bodily system that is that communication, direct communication with the spiritual essence of us. And of course, by those who perhaps wanted to control, they told us to shut that down. But we want to integrate it back so that we can remember our wholeness. So there's a perfect way for us, aside from yoga, which is a perfect way to merge body, mind, and breath. We're going to do a little practice today here called central channel breathing. And I know y'all know I've done it with you before, but we're going to do it again because what it's going to help us do is going to help us focus the mind on the breath as it's moving through the body, reconnecting all three. So every breath you take and every exhale is going to be in and out through the nose. And you're going to use your imagination, if you can't feel it, starting way above to breathe inhale. Let that breath travel through the top of the head, down through the throat, through the heart, solar plexus into the belly. Extend the belly, big Buddha belly. And then exhale out through the root, through your legs and feet into the earth. And then inhale up into the belly, let it travel all the way up. Use the imagination to follow it. And then on the exhale from the belly, up the spine, through the heart, the throat, the brain, up the top of the head. And once we're going to do another round. One round is all the way down and up. Okay. Inhale into the belly and exhale out through the root. And then inhale from the root all the way up into the belly. And exhale up the spine, through the heart, through the throat, through the brain, out the top of the head. That's central channel breathing, as taught by Dr. Subordner. And ancients have long known that that prana, this breath of life, actually moves the presence within us and enlivens us, not only in the mind, but in all of the tissues of the body. It helps us reconnect things that we've lost along the way. It helps us feel our wholeness by perhaps connecting things that have never been connected for us in this physical body. If every single breath you took was a central channel breath, your life would transform. It would transform. It's bringing us back together again to where we're whole, to where we are enough, where we are enough. So, in summary, the car is, the C is compare and despair, so don't do that. Drop in and drop through. The A is acknowledge that you are the divine. And the R is reconnect, mind, body, spirit, our mind, body, breath. So let's just move into our treatment. As we continue to breathe in the belly, we bring to mind the truth of our own being, that there's this one essence and this one power and this one energy, this one grace, this one love, this one beingness. And we call it God. But it is nothing that is separate from us. How could it be, since it's everything that is? It is this unified field out of which all things come. All things, including us. We're like a pinch in it, or a wave in the ocean. We are of it. It is what we are through and through. And in this awareness, we know that we have the power to create just as it creates. And so we create today from a higher source, from a higher place in our awareness, rather than falling back on those creations that are built on fear and not enoughness. We say, oh no, no more. My creation today is coming from that essence of wholeness, knowing that I am that light. I am that light come to shine in this planet on others so that their lights may in turn shine. I'm here to awaken to all of that magnificence that I am, to that truth that I am more than enough. We anchor that into our consciousness. More than enough, infinitely enough, exponentially enough. And nothing can change that. I'm so grateful for this awareness to know this from the tip of my toes to the top of my head and beyond into the rest of my beingness. And with gratitude for this awareness, I release it into that law, which of course says yes, yes. And so you may join me in sealing this, saying, and so it is. Amen.